So now this one is even more disturbing. This is the most disturbing cryptid that we got going here. The Sabinchi Tomatovic tape. All right, so you're going to have to bear with me on this one because it gets into some wild ass territory. I mentioned this tape on my mega list from just under a week ago. I had no intention of writing about it yet, but decided that in order to bridge the gap between now and March, I should go ahead and share with you the oh so lovely story of the Sabinchi Tomatovic tape. I hope you're not arachnophobic. Let's see, how long is this? Okay, that's not bad. We can read this. We got plenty of time. Our story today is on the conspiracy iceberg, specifically at Tier 4. The name is the first thing I'd like to point out. I can't find a precise origin for it, but there are two explanations for it. The first is that it's the name of the woman who appears in the titular tape. The second comes from a comment that I saw in the video that Dead Rabbit Radio did for this story. Someone said that the name translates to tomato sandwich. Albeit the words are backwards in the name. I can't confirm this, but if anyone who speaks Serbian can verify this, I'd appreciate this. Tomato sandwich. What was the name again? Sabinchi Tomatovic. Oh, maybe. Okay, now then, the story behind this tape is one that reportedly dates back to the early days of the internet. As such, I traveled to 4chan for it, and as luck would have it, I was able to find a good amount of information and even a gif of human Spider-Woman being quite kinky. Never changed. Thanks, person never changed. Supposedly, there was an Australian-Serbian porn actress who, according to some, is named Sabinchi Tomatovic. I will call her by this name for the sake of the consistency, who told some of her friends and family quite a strange tale. So this is the tape. This woman's name, the tomato sandwich is her name. We're going to call her Tomato Sandwich because I don't want to stumble over Sabinchi Tomatovic every time it pops up in this story. So, Tomato Sandwich said that she had been sexually assaulted or raped, depending on what version of the story you're reading, by a giant spider that was 4 feet in size. This spider was or is a Jabba, though the incident didn't take place in the creature's natural habitat of the Congo, rather it was in Serbia. So, Tomato Sandwich went on to say that she wasn't alone when this terrifying incident occurred. Supposedly, it was filmed and was subsequently circulated. This led to her quickly becoming extremely famous in Japan's underground Genki circle. Since then, I don't even want to know what a Genki circle is. If they're distributing and making girls famous off of rape tapes, that's probably not good to dive into that rabbit hole on the internet. Anyways, since then, she's allegedly also been the star of pornographic videos featuring giant centipedes and gastropods. The family that includes snails. Well, that's good for clarification. She's banging giant snails nowadays. Since the story became well known, many have claimed to have seen it, but no footage has ever surfaced. There are merely claims of what's featured in it, which typically amounts to nothing more than a giant hairy spider has sex with a Serbian porn actress. Anticlimactic? Well, I guess if you expected something more from the internet, then maybe. To most, though, the insatiable curiosity of man overrides the unnerving nature of a giant spider and the horrific act of rape. After all, it's a giant spider. That's something we associate with tarantulas and huntsman spiders. Both, while definitely sizable, the largest generally having a leg span of 13 inches, aren't exactly giant, nor are they man killers unless one is young, has a weak immune system, or is allergic. Because of this, some still search for the video. None have succeeded, though. With that said, the story of this peculiar tape comes to an end. It's certainly a head-turning tale, one that I never could have fathomed I'd ever find myself writing about. Heck, if you told me 2 years ago that this is what I'd be writing about, I would have likely laughed you out of the entire galaxy. Yet here I am. It's pretty surreal, to be frank. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Theories. 1, it's a hoax. Yeah, well, I think that's probably the obvious. Pulling the old switcheroo, we're going to start off the theories, of which there are only 2. Boy, I sure said theories a lot. With the idea that it's a hoax. Due to the lack of any video having ever been presented throughout the existence of the theory, along with no proof of the existence of an arachnid, let alone a myropod or gastropod of the sizes claimed to be seen in the video, the vast majority of people believe the video is to be fake. The cherry on top is a lack of evidence of the porn star being real, which in this day and age is absurd. That's pretty absurd, right? If you got raped by a giant spider and were made famous in some Genki circle, you might as well just go the whole 9 yards and just say fuck it and release the whole thing. 2, it's real. The other theory is that it's real and its existence is being suppressed. Given the theory that the existence of cryptids is said to be covered up by the powers that be, It would only make sense that an underground pornographic video would likely be the target of suppression. It's also not unheard of for seedy videos like this to be thought of as myths, only to later be proven as real. This was the case with Daisy's destruction. Ugh. I don't know if I want to go looking into that. However, whereas that video is child pornography, I definitely don't want to be going into that. This is something entirely different. One has a history of being real and regularly circulated. The other is something that would change our knowledge of the animal kingdom. Yep, there you go. So, hey, look at this guy. I believe I'm the culprit responsible for the tomato sandwich suggestion unless someone else made the same connection. I don't speak Serbian, it was just a guess. That's the internet for you. Anyhow, I have another speculative suggestion. What if the alleged spider was actually a giant coconut crab? Where have we heard that? After all, if you're presented with a huge black multi-limbed arachnid looking thing that you're supposed to copulate with, the last thing a Serbian porn star is likely to do is analyze the creature's genus and taxonomy. Well, I suppose that's true. Anecdotally, I recall during the early days of the internet, a friend who had a few scruples about his online viewing told me he saw a video of a woman having sex with a huge lobster. I declined to view it. But maybe this was the origin of the legendary footage. I too researched 4chan and saw the Spider Woman gif and ultimately found the whole video, which was rather a cheesy porn video featuring a woman in a spider costume. The things one does in the name of crypto research. Okay, here's I happen to know Serbian, and no, Sabinci Tomatovic does not mean tomato sandwich. Moreover, Sambic isn't even a real Serbian name. Tomatovic, correctly spelled Tomatovic, is a real last name, though. Even if Sabinci was a real name, it would probably be spelt Sabinci. Still not a real name, but back in the old days of the internet, chi was used to spell the letter C because our Latin letters were not supported back then. Oh, interesting. So this guy goes over the whole Tomatovic name, the person's name. Well, so that's the tomato sandwich tape. Pretty wild. Not a whole lot of evidence for it. Probably likely, hopefully, I hope on that one that it's definitely a bunch of bullshit. Because being raped by a giant spider, just seeing a giant spider would be horrible. But being raped by one, that's a whole nother thing. Just seeing one was enough to make that soldier in Louisiana go freako. I can't imagine how bad it'd be to have that happen. Anyways, our last cryptid of today is Singing Spiders of Paris. The Singing Spiders of Paris were giant arachnids blamed for mysterious disappearances around a tomb in Paris, said to draw out their prey with a siren song. The appearance. The creature was first described in Ann Arbor Argus of September 14th, 1948. During late March and invariably at night, each year for many years, men and women had inexplicably been disappearing into a region of Paris known as the Tomb of Issour, now La Rue de la Tombe Issour. I'm sure I'm not saying Issour right. Without any trace of them ever being discovered. One night, however, a policeman in this vicinity happened to hear a strange musical song issuing forth from a hole at the base of a huge rock there, dubbed the Giant's Cave due to the legend that a giant had been buried there long ago. As a policeman stood listening, he saw a young man approach the hole, seemingly hypnotized by the unearthly strains issuing forth from the hidden subterranean source, and then suddenly the man raced into the hole at full speed. The policeman chased after him, firing his revolver to alert some of his colleagues for backup as they entered the hole. They soon arrived, by which time the strange music had ceased, its mysterious melody having been replaced by the sound of a violent struggle. Arming themselves with ropes, ladders, and lamps, the policeman's colleagues swiftly penetrated the chasm into which the hole led and beheld a terrifying sight. The young man, dead, was in the grip of a giant monstrous spider, which according to the newspaper report was as large as a full-grown terrier, covered with wart-like protuberances and bristling with coarse brownish hair. Eight jointed legs terminated by formidable claws were buried in the body of the unfortunate victim. The face had already disappeared. Nothing could be seen but the top of the head, and the monster was now engaged in tearing and sucking the blood from his throat. Ooh. Several blasts from the policeman's gun soon dispatched this horrific creature, after which they found their colleague lying in a corner, unconscious but unharmed. They then carried the two men and the carcass of the great giant spider out through the hole into the Parisian street where this surreal incident had begun. Possible explanations. There are several explanations as to what the creature could be. Theories include 1. A newspaper tall tale, a hoax. The story wraps up with a note on the disposal of the giant arachnid corpse with the Museum of Natural History and its identity as Arachnid gigans, a giant spider. No such item was ever received by the museum, nor is that name given to any known spider, living or extinct. And 2. A real undiscovered cryptid spider, highly unlikely. Yeah, I'm going to go with a no. Although that is an interesting story. Giant singing spiders. You know, out of all the different cryptids, we got the Up Island spider, which seems like it's probably just a wolf spider. The Buena Vista, Colorado giant spider, which supposedly made really good pets and really good leather gloves. A little more interesting. Then we had what else did we had? We had the oil drinking spider, which I think is probably one of the more interesting ones. Oil drinking spider. Then we have the spider that really enjoys porn stars in Serbia. Gets around, little slut spider. And then we have the singing spiders of Paris. So those were all, not all, but the majority of the spider cryptids that I could find, besides Jabal Fofi. Jabal Fofi is obviously the biggest, most known spider cryptid, but there are others out there, and those were the more interesting ones that I had found.